Good evening, wherever you may be joining us. I'm Carmen Lerga, and I'm delighted to welcome you to Trend to Tooth, turning product stories into proven claims, hosted by Olalla Consulting. Today, we gather at a critical juncture in the world of cosmetics, a landscape where compelling product narratives must be anchored not just in hope and creativity, but in demonstrable regulatory compliant truth. The power of compelling product story is undeniable. It opens doors, inspires loyalty, and shapes trends. But in a marketplace shaped by ever stricter regulations, heightened consumer skepticism, and relentless demand for evidence, it's not enough to promise results. We must prove them. This webinar is crafted for everyone with a stake in a cosmetic brand reputation and compliance. From marketing professionals and regulatory specialists to product development teams, R&D, and brand leaders, our objective is to equip you with the practical knowledge and robust tools needed to turn product stories into substantiated claims. Claims that stand in the regulatory landscape governing cosmetic claims in the EU and UK is one of the most comprehensive in the world, designed to protect consumers and foster fair competition at the heart of this framework in the product information file, curated by a responsible person, an individual or entity legally accountable for claim substantiation, safety, and documentation. Every marketing statement, whether it's made on pack, in advertising, or on social media, must comply with 6 core common criteria set out in the Regulation 655 of 2013 and echoed in the UK law: legal compliance, truthfulness, and evidential report, honesty, fairness, and allowance for informed consumer decisions. If any one of these criteria are breached, authorities such as the UK Advertising Standards Authority or EU equivalent bodies can impose penalties, mandate product withdrawal, or inflict reputational damage that could erode hard-earned consumer trust. In today's data-driven and scrutinized market, brands cannot afford to risk of making bold claims without documentary evidence. Testing forms the empirical backbone of claim substantiation. Bonding robust evidence that links product attributes to the benefits promised on pack and advertising. In vitro studies assess the effect of ingredients or formulations in a controlled laboratory environment, typical using cultured skin cells or reconstructed tissue models. These are invaluable for understanding mechanisms of action, checking ingredient efficacy, and in some cases, screening for toxicological safety, making them especially useful as ethical alternatives to animal testing and early-stage efficacy screening. Ex vivo studies bridge the gap between the in vitro insights and the real-world performance, evaluating cosmetic formulations on human skin tissue obtained from surgery, often maintained with much of its physiological structure and diversity of cell types intact. Such studies permit reliable assessment of functions like skin barrier reinforcement, anti-aging, irritation potential, and ingredient penetration, while avoiding live subject exposure. Finally, clinical studies are regarded as the gold standard, conducted on live volunteers under controlled conditions using validated statistical and measurable protocols. They provide the most direct evidence of real-world efficacy and consumer perceived benefits. All 3 approaches provide unique and complementary evidence and are often used in combination to substantiate different types of cosmetic claims. In vitro studies are an indispensable tool for modern cosmetic R&D, allowing brands to demonstrate safety, biological activity, or a specific mechanistic effect of active materials. These studies might involve cell viability testing using MTT or LADH assays for cytotoxicity, enzyme inhibition to assess anti-aging or anti-inflammatory effects, or gene expression profiling to identify upregulation or downregulation of relevant biomarkers like collagen synthesis or antioxidant pathways. The power of in vitro methods lies in the speed, reproducibility, and ethical advantage. Avoiding animal models, which are banned in cosmetics in the EU and are not favored in the UK, and allowing for deep mechanistic insight. However, limitations persist. These models cannot fully replicate the complexity of living human skin or long-term use scenarios, and results must be interpreted with a clear understanding of translational relevance. Robust in vitro study designs require clear objectives, approximate controls like positive, negative, or a vehicle, and methods that ensure reproducibility, such as using validated cell lines, calibrated equipment, and applying international recognized protocols like the OECD test guidelines for ECHA and REACH. All in vitro data should be considered as supporting rather than definitive, and ideally joined by ex vivo or clinical evidence during the claim substantiation. Ex vivo studies offer a unique window into effects of cosmetic products on human tissue, maintaining the complex architecture, cell diversity, and extracellular matrix of the skin, a sharp step up in physiological relevance from cell cultures. Typically, skin tissue, often from plastic surgery that has skin that has been removed from the stomach mostly, is cultured and at an air-liquid interface with a careful attention given to the remaining tissue availability and structure over the several days or weeks. Applications range from measuring barrier restoration, using transepidermal water loss, or filigree expression, evaluating irritation via histopathology and apopsis, makers, to ingredient penetration using a front cell diffusion cell. Compared to in vitro models, ex vivo tests account for interactions among skin layers, appendages, and even hair follicles, making them highly suited for to substantiate complex product claims such as repairs the skin barrier, or resists the pollution, or supports skin homeostasis. Best practices ex vivo study design include careful tissue sourcing and handling, valuation of the tissue availability, use of positive and negative controls, and statistically sound analysis using appropriate sample sizes. While costlier than simple cell studies, ex vivo models often predict clinical outcomes with a high accuracy and are regarded as a powerful component of substantiated claims evidence. Clinical studies, such as the ones in the pictures, are the linchpin for substantiating objective cosmetic efficacy claims. In the eyes of both regulators and consumers, designed meticulously, they provide impartial evidence of a product performance in the wild, or more precisely, in the hands or in the face of real representative users. A robust clinical study design starts with a clear objective and a selection of primary and secondary endpoints where You measure the skin hydration or the wrinkle reduction by a grading or corneometry or 3D imaging. Hyperpigmentation by spectrometry or by using a busy scan like here in the picture. Inclusion and exclusion criteria must align with the target product users. For example, the age, the gender, the skin type, and the ethnic diversity needs to be appropriate for the type of claim that wants to be achieved. While the sample sizes are determined through the statistical power calculation to ensure meaningful, reproducible results. Clinical tests are standardized as between 20 to 50, and consumer tests are more like 150. Blinding and randomization is crucial, minimizing the bias of the consumers in questionnaires, as well as using placebo and vehicle controls. Where possible, instrumental measurements should be completed with self-perception ratings and maximize objectivity. Expert grading of high resolution before and after images. State-of-the-art analysis should employ validated statistical approaches per test, another test, non-parametric alternatives if it's a consumer scoring, logistic regressions, and the results must be both statistically significant and clinically relevant to support the claim that will withstand regulatory and consumer scrutiny. The journey from concept to claim is a fundamental cross-functional endeavor. Siloed working will not only slow innovation, but also jeopardize regulatory compliance and consumer trust. Effective collaboration hinges on integrated models like project-based cross-functional teams, permanent interdepartmental committees, and ad hoc task forces form around the new product launches or regulatory changes. R&D plays the fundamental role of designing the robust studies, creating the formulation aligned to the claims, and choosing the appropriate methodologies and generation of primary data that anchors the claims. They interface closely with the scientific advisors and ensure all the findings are both valid and reproducible. Regulatory affairs acts as the compliance gatekeeper, reviewing test protocols, aligning to the evidence with the EU and the UK legal requirements, and ensuring that claims language and positioning adhere to the common criteria. In the age of rapid regulatory evolution, regulatory affairs may remain agile and anticipate shifts, such as those related to allergen labeling, environmental claims. Marketing must translate complex data-driven findings into clear, honest, and compelling consumer narratives, working within boundaries set by law and validated by evidence. They must avoid overpromising, ensuring before and after images, for example, are representative and unretouched and substantiated by scientific data. Quality assurance ensures that every step from initial testing to final packaging is meticulously documented and audit ready. A pivotal step in the claim substantiation process is translating the technical evidence into clinical, persuasive, and compliant consumer language. While detailing p-values and gene expression changes impresses scientists and regulators, they rarely resonate with the average shopper. Effective brands distill clinical results into tangible, relatable benefits. Reduces wrinkle appearance by 24% in 8 weeks as proven clinical testing, rather than modulates MMP expression in vitro. Visual assets such as a before and after picture, charts, and infographics when rooted in rigorous clinical evidence and captured using control and bias-free conditions, such as 3D imaging and fixed lighting and positioning, can dramatically boost consumer understanding and trust. However, all claims and visuals must remain faithful to the underlying data. Exaggeration, selective endpoint reporting, and airbrushed after images invite to scrutiny and erode trust. Marketeers, in close partnership with R&D and regulatory affairs, should prioritize simplicity, honesty, relevance, on consumer experience rather than technical intricacies. Honesty and clarity are not just regulatory requirements, but the foundation of enduring brand reputation in a skeptical, information-rich age. In the EU, cosmetic claims are governed most centrally by the regulation of the EC 1223/2009 and Commission Regulation 655/2013. Every product placed on the market must have an easily retrievable, up-to-date product information file. This must contain the product description identification, the cosmetic product safety report, evidence substantiating the effects of claims or proof of effect, manufacturing details like the GMP and ISO compliance, records of animal testing where relevant. The PIF must be maintained by the responsible person for up to 10 years post-market and made available to inspecting authorities on demand. The common criteria embedded in the Regulation 655/2013 required that all claims be legal, truthful, evidence-based, honest, fair, data-informed consumer decisions. The responsible person must ensure that claims on packaging, advertising, or digital platforms are supported by adequate, verifiable evidence, most often a combination of published ingredient data, in vitro, ex vivo findings, and robust clinical studies specifically relevant to the finished formulation. Recent regulatory focus points include allergen labeling, a most restricted disclosure of fragrance allergens has been updated in the EU, requiring extended allergen listed. Green and environmental claims are scrutinized towards eco, non-toxic, and natural claims, which must be substantiated for the full product life cycle and avoiding greenwashing. This needs to be anticipated by the regulatory team as a stricter implementation under the upcoming EU Green Claims Directive is coming. Digital labels, the advance of digital labeling with the QR codes gives a solution to supplement or enhance the packaging information, particularly this is useful for products that have got a small or limited space due to multiple languages or packaging size. Comparative and free from claims, careful reviewing to avoid unfair denigration or misleading implication regarding competitor products or ingredients. Staying vigilant and proactive, updating documentation are essential for both compliance and competitiveness in the EU dynamic regulatory landscape. While closely aligned to the EU framework, the UK Cosmetic Product Enforcement Regulations of 2013 places additional emphasis and introduces unique compliance details. The product information file remains central and must be held in English by a UK established responsible person. Its content largely mirrors those of the requirements in the EU, such as the safety assessment, the claim evidence, the GMP manufacturing process, a product description. Notably, UK regulators require that the PIF supporting all the marketing claims and safety details be updated regularly and stored for 10 years after final batch release. A significant UK compliant checkpoint involves the Advertising Standard Authority, ASA, which enforces the CAP codes, demanding that all efficacy claims, advertisements, whether textual, visual, or implied, are substantiated by robust, preferably clinical studies. In vitro or anecdotal evidence alone will not suffice for objective or breakthrough claims. Product notification procedures must use the UK Cosmetic Product Notification Service. The UK is also introducing new requirements, such as the extended producer responsibility for packaging, meaning brand owners will bear more responsibility for collection, sorting, and recycling costs from 2026 onwards. This factor may influence sustainable packaging claims and how they are substantiated or communicated. As the UK regulatory environment diverges, albeit slowly, from the EU, cosmetic stakeholders must adapt documentation and claims management processes to address both and unique expectations across the two markets. Compelling, compliant claims rest on the quality of study design, conduct, how they are conducted, and documentation. Protocols must specify the study objective, product identification, the population sample, the inclusion and exclusion criteria of that population, statistical power, instrumentation, assessment procedures, and data management plans. For clinical studies, both subjective and objective endpoints must be defined with validated assessment tools and clear timelines. Maintaining rigorous documentation, such as raw data, calibrated certificate, panel recruitment consent forms, and audit trails, ensures audit readiness and transparency for regulators, competitors, and auditors alike. Statistical analysis must be pre-specified, choosing methods appropriate for the data nature. Is the difference between t-test, ANOVA test, or continuous variable, chi-square, or logistic regressions, and correction for multiple comparisons where needed. For studies with longitudinal follow-up, mixed effects models, or repeated measurements, ANOVA might be employed. Reporting must include the effect sizes, confidence intervals, and p-values. Regulatory reviewers and the ASA both expect that the statistical significantly aligns with clinical relevance. Selective data reporting or misinterpretation can invalidate a claim and erode trust. After substantiating the product benefits through science, the task shifts into weaving the evidence into stories that excite and reassure consumers. This effort must be collaborative, aligning marketing with regulatory and R&D so that claims language is both compelling and honest. Techniques include using easy to understand quantifiable benefits like gives 24 hours hydration or reduces wrinkles in 6 weeks. Standardize before and after visuals with captured metadata will avoid bias and misinterpretation, and use third-party sales or endorsement for extra credibility. When using consumer perception data, surveys or in-home study test results must be framed fairly. 80% of users saw improvement after 4 weeks, rather than proven to eliminate all wrinkles. Conversely, clinical or instrumental measures like corneometry or 3D imaging can highlight for technical audiences or sophisticated markets. Ongoing staff training and checklists can help marketing teams to avoid overclaims, unsupported superlatives, or language that could stray into medicinal territory, preserving both compliance and credibility. Consider the launch of a new anti-aging serum containing a novel peptide. In today's best-in-class organization, a digital PML, product life cycle management platform, is used to orchestrate a step-by-step process. R&D proposes an ingredient and triggers both QA quality and regulatory for early consultations. Or marketing starts with a concept. This concept needs to be created and tested. Marketing, R&D, and regulatory need to work together to avoid putting the project on hold. Once this concept is tested and approved, the laboratory will create a formula, the R&D team will create the formula and the product, and then this will be tested in a laboratory as an ex vivo study with initial technical evidence. Then clinical study design is agreed upon the joint session with all the teams. Quality ensures that all the raw data, methods, and instruments are properly documented, while regulatory drafts a substantiation matrix together with the development team. This is made available for evidence to the desired timelines and pack claims. Marketing is then looped in, invited to a cross-team review to visualize and simplify the claim for packaging and digital content, referencing only validated data. The finalized claims substantiated dossier with supporting clinical study reports, photographs, and statistical analysis. This is then uploaded into a central system linking claims to underlying evidence, compliance note, and process approvals. Not only does this accelerate approvals and market launch, but also makes every claim traceable and defendable if a regulatory or consumer challenge arises. These brands do work in that manner with a robust claims association before launch. When we look at products like the CeraVe foaming cleanser, the claims around barrier protection and hydration are likely supported with clinical testing. These studies are conducted on human volunteers under controlled conditions. That's the gold standard for consumer-facing claims. But what if you are still in early development or working with actives that need mechanistic proof before clinical investment? That's where ex vivo studies shine. The ex vivo models use real human skin, often sourced from surgical procedures, and maintaining its full structure, epidermis, dermis, hair, follicles, and glands. This allows us to test how ingredients interact with the skin barrier, measure its rotation, and track permeation using tools like front cell or dual sensor. Unlike in vitro cell cultures, ex vivo studies preserve the complexity of the skin biology. They are ideal for substantiating claims like repairs the skin barrier, resists pollution, or supports the skin hemostasis, especially when clinical trials aren't yet feasible. So while clinical testing delivers consumer relevance, ex vivo testing delivers mechanistic credibility. Together, they form a layered evidence strategy that builds trust from lab bench to bathroom shelf. This also is put together with potential consumer questionnaires, which give the feedback of real people with their real words. Other products, such as The Ordinary, when we analyze products like this or The Ordinary hyaluronic acid 2% plus B5, something interesting happened on the pack claims. As we can see, these pack claims are minimal and formulation focus. They indicate that contains hyaluronic acid, includes provitamin B5. These are ingredient-led claims. They only need the substantiation of the formula batch sheet to verify that those ingredients are in there. They are not performance-led claims. They are only formulation-led claims. Hence, no clinical testing needs doing. And however, it breaches on the assumption that the consumer knows that product will do something because it contains that ingredient. Claims are ingredient-led statements, not performance-led promises. But then you look at the digital support. Those materials are having claims in the website, product pages, and social media. You start to see more assertive language, visible reduced fine lines, enhanced efficacy, locks in moisture. These are performance claims and they imply testing. Yet there is no clinical data cited, no study design disclosed, and no visible substantiation at launch. This tells us two things. The brand may have relied on ingredient reputation, assuming consumers will associate hyaluronic acid with hydration and anti-aging benefits. The actual formal performance may not have been tested at launch, or the results weren't robust enough to support clinical claim on pack. This is a classic case of perception-led marketing. The consumer fills the gaps. They see hyaluronic acid and mentally translate that into this will hydrate my skin. But from a regulatory and scientific standpoint, that's not enough. If you are building a brand today, you need to ask, are you claiming that the ingredient can do or what your formula has proven to do? Because the only one of those builds lasting trust and passes regulatory scrutiny. Attending this webinar will arm you with the essential skills and frameworks to lead your organization from a product story proven claim, whether your role is in product innovation, compliance, marketing, or quality assurance. You will live with a nuanced grasp of both scientific and regulatory imperatives behind every public statement your brand makes. By embracing robust study design, cross-functional collaboration, and clear consumer messaging, you can transform chemical reality into tangible audit-proof benefits, building lasting trust and growth even in the most skeptical and regulated of markets. Thank you for joining the Trend to Truth today. Our journey has traversed the full landscape from cell culture to the claims label and from the lab to consumer hands. Now I invite you to questions, whether they are concerned the technical nuances of ex vivo modeling, practices, practicabilities of cross-functional collaboration, or the art of shaping consumer-facing communications from clinical data. As you return to your organizations, consider auditing your current claims, protocols, and processes through the lens of today's learning. Utilize checklists and digital collaboration platforms to bridge gaps among the internal teams. And above all, champion a culture of substantive, evidence-based communication, the true pathway from trend to proven truth. Thank you very much. This is Carmen Martinez from Olalla Consulting.